So thank you for joining this session and for coming along today. I'm very glad to have here James Crawford of PR Agency One up in Manchester, who has been a leading voice talking about GEO and working with search and AI engines, and was a leading contributor to the new Amec principles that released just, I think, last month or 6 weeks ago. So I'm very happy to have him here, and thanks for coming along, James. And he's going to share some insights into increasingly what search is looking like online now that it's intermediated by a whole bunch of AI engines, and what you as comms people can do to kind of get on that train. So thank you very much, James. Over to you.
Hi, everybody. Always a bit strange on these calls. Feel like you're talking to yourself, but I can see a few faces, which is good. Do feel free to ask questions in the chat. I believe there's a Q&A as we go along. I'm James Crawford. I'm the Managing Director of PR Agency One, and I'm a Board Director at Amec. PR Agency One is a PR agency that specializes in measurable outcomes or propositions creative effectiveness. Been doing that for a good 20 odd years. And I've been an AMEC board member for getting on for 9 years now. And AMEC is the Association for Measurement, Evaluation and Communication, sets the global standards in PR measurement. You may, if you work in PR, be aware of the Barcelona Principles, which we like to think has killed off advertising value equivalent as a metric. You'll be aware of the AMEC framework, which is a measurement framework to help measure objective and impact. If you're not aware of that, there's lots of resources online. And at this year's summit, I co-chaired the creation of the Amec GEO Principles because, as we know, generative engine optimization, or AI search, or AIO as we call it, has been setting the marketing world alight. And I don't know quite the makeup of the room. Some people will probably have a lot of awareness of this area. Some people might be just finding out about it for the first time today. So I'll try to be gentle and not bore those who've maybe gone a little bit further with it. So any questions? There are no stupid questions on this call today. Um, the reason why we created the principles, just to give you kind of an overview, was we've been looking at AI for at least the last 3 years as kind of a reputation engine for brands. And 6 months, well, in October, there was the Amec AI Day. And at that, there was lots of great innovation. There were lots of vendors offering their contribution on how to measure this stuff. And while there was a lot of energy in the room and a lot of really great insight, there was also lots of disparate thoughts and approaches and some good and bad practice. So we thought it would be a good idea to um, cement this practice in some sensible measurement. So here we are. That's what I'm going to talk about today. I think if this slide goes down, there we go. So it's a very serious discipline, I would like to think. Um, but there has been criticism of it, notably of cowboys in the space offering all sorts of rogue advice. And I was called by a leading measurement expert on LinkedIn, the sheriff of the Geo posse, and another PR voice, strangely called me the Gandalf of Amec. All light-hearted stuff, but that did actually, if you search for those things in Google Gemini, does actually show up in my results. But there, it just goes to show that, the case in point, if you ask a stupid question, you get a stupid answer. So let's make this serious. So for the next few slides, I'm just showing my thinking about the higher education space before we look at how to approach it, because I think it's important to kind of do that to make sure we approach this in the right way. And some of this you'll already know, guys, but why is it important to higher education? I've just sourced a few stats. There's loads of them online, varying different answers, but we know that more and more students are using AI with their applications to survey and find out more about the options. 61% of AI users use it to compare university. and 52% have used it to look up entry requirements. That may be higher than it actually is in reality, but we definitely know there is a shift there. And alongside this shift of people using LLMs, we're seeing in Google results AI overviews, which are cannibalizing your organic traffic. All websites across the world are 10, 15, 20% down with their organic traffic. That was free traffic that Google used to send you that it no longer does. So it makes sense to try and understand this space and understand why it's important. So I think that having looked into the sector, when Michael approached me to talk to you today, there are some good conversations happening and things are moving quickly um, in the market. I'll go through some of those examples on the next couple of slides. A lot of the work that seems to be done, obviously, it focuses on student recruitment and just general visibility. That makes sense, seeing it's such an important and challenging space right now for the sector. But as we know, there are other strings to the university's bow. They're quite complex organisations, unlike many other organisations that are out there. And that was probably one of the things that came up when we were producing the Amec GEO Principles was that a lot of the advice that out there is focused on consumer brands. And in a way, you are a consumer brand from a recruitment point of view, but you're also a B2B brand when it comes to research, spin outs and the like. And therefore, you need a framework that's going to work for you as a sector. So where is the sector now? What we're seeing obviously is a lots of conversations around student recruitment, course discovery, entry requirements, ranking comparison sites, and referrals from ChatGPT and other places. In the conversation, at least, maybe behind closed doors, you're doing this, but we do need to make sure that we're focused on other areas that are important revenue streams for universities. So we need to make sure that your research authority is being tracked and measured, that your experts are visible and known, and being cited. Um, Conversations about funding, credibility, commercial partnerships, spin out reputation, all those things need to be a part of what we're looking to measure. So there is a measurement gap, and it's not just the higher education sector that's got this gap. Every single industry is focused maybe on quite a narrow section of GEO, and everybody's focused on visibility. Now, visibility is useful, but it's not going to tell you what you need alone. What you need to know is whether students trust you, whether funders are going to, rate you, or partners choose you, or whatever that'll be. That what we're talking about in Amex sense there is impact, and how do we measure that? And that's where starts to get complicated. And arguably, there's a piece of measurement to do before the visibility piece too. So visibility is, it's a point that I'll make later on, is not an outcome to measure. It's part of the measurement mix, but we shouldn't be just focusing on it. A lot of you will be well versed on SEO. I've seen some great work in the higher education space in SEO. And if we look at the SEO community, usually it is the lower quality SEO professionals and agencies that just give you a ranking report and that's it. Off SEMrush or some other tool like that. What a really good SEO does is they tell you what you're ranking for. They will tell you what traffic you're getting. They'll tell you what that traffic is then doing. Is it converting? And then help you connect those conversions to your CRM to really track that through the business. So this whole conversation that people are having around visibility in LLMs at the moment is quite an immature way of looking at the overall measurement of this piece, but it is obviously a part of it. So you're not normal brands. I don't want to teach you to suck eggs, but you've got teaching and student experience. You've got a broad range of key messages that you need to get over. Arguably a lot broader than a lot of organisations around applications, international recruitment, employability confidence, grants. You can read the screen. You don't need me to read them all. I'm not sure if these figures are exactly right, but you can see the kind of the general split there in terms of income. So it's not just so GEO for me is it would not just be a recruitment game. It would be looking at the broader activities of all the universities around research, around commercial spin-outs, that kind of thing. Um, Saying that, broadening it out like that makes it more complex, makes it more expensive, more time consuming. But that's the business you're in. So let's get on to prompts. So a lot of people might understand GEO as measuring prompts and what they say. And that's understandable because that's what a lot of the GEO vendors do. But for me, that is not actual measurement. So there's lots of reasons why. I'll come on to that later. But the main reason that I'll say now and say it again is there's no universe of prompt data. So you're all probably better at, a lot of you are probably better at data analysis than I am, being from an academic background, probably. But to do measurement, you need a universe of data, and there is no universe of data when it comes to prompts. So a lot of the vendors are using synthetic prompts, having a guess at what people might be saying. There are some tools that use panels to get what sounds like a lot, millions of prompts. But how are those prompts collated, and who are they collated from? A lot of the time, people might sign up to say a VPN and have a plugin on their Chrome, and it's scraping data. Is it scraping data with their knowledge? Have they opted in? If they have opted in, who the hell are these people? And even hundreds of millions, if not billions, of prompts are just 0.005% of all prompts in the universe. So even these tools that offer to say to you that they've got this big prompt library are basically uh, offering you a very small data set. So I've said when talking about this before that this is directional measurement. It's not. It's more like telemetry to use a term. It's a kind of output from a machine. It's not a pure measurement science. It's like early stage social listening was when social media first burst onto the scene. But what makes it more complicated for you guys is you can't just get something like a profound and go on their basic plan and use 50 prompts to track the overall impact of what you're doing because 50 prompts is nothing. Um, there are bigger tools out there, enterprise grade tools to track bigger prompt sets, but even then, there's no universal data. So what are you really measuring? But some examples of prompts you might want to look at, international student prompts, policy team prompts, prompts from journalists, investors. You've got so many different stakeholders who might be asking things. You've really got to focus in on who you want to measure. And sorry to add greater complexity to this, but with international students, they're going to be in a different market. That they may well be searching in a different language, and the results they get compared to your prompt tracker will be completely different. So you can start to measure those, start to measure international markets if you want, but you're adding greater complexity, greater costs, and you can be looking at £3,000 a month and above for some of the really big data prompt and visibility trackers that are out there. So you need to approach it with a sense of proportion. That's the first thing I would say. So why do we get involved? Well, all this hype around it and a lot of the research that you will have seen where people are telling you exactly how much visibility certain brands have, and they're 100% convinced that Reddit is driving the number one amount of citations in LLMs or LinkedIn, or it might be a news site, it might be something else. All those approaches to measure that are deeply flawed and high. And they all seem to have a different score. Depending on who you listen to, there might be 40% of earned media is driving visibility. It might be 80%. If you listen to an SEO, it's all SEO driving it. So there's a lot of hype, a lot of sort of interesting research out there. So we wanted to move beyond the visibility score. We didn't want the industry to just create another vanity metric, a bit like with AVE. We wanted people to think more broadly about it. So we went off and we created a set of principles. And the idea with the principles is you'll get better decision making because of them. So I've touched on this a little bit earlier. I'm just going to have a drink of water, excuse me. Visibility is not an outcome. So you can track mentions and you can track the framing around the mentions. You can see what's being said, but it's not tracking trust or action or impact. So there are other ways to do that, of course, and it isn't easy. But in many ways, measurement when it comes to LLMs is going back to how we maybe did it in the older days where we might have done actual research to find out how people found out about the organization, that kind of piece to find out whether they trust you, what the action was, that kind of piece. There are also visible surfaces you can measure. So obviously AI answers are not LLM outputs, but they are very visible and you can measure those and you can see what's being synthesized and get a good sense for what might be pulling through. But also in Google Analytics, you can start to see where you're getting referral traffic from these outputs. Now, they don't always give you a nice link, but when they do, it's great because it can start to, when aggregated, tell you thematically about where you are doing well and where you're not doing well. So my company, we're doing really well at the moment in the technology space. We're being cited a lot for technology. I can see that because I'm getting a lot of referrals to my technology page from ChatGPT. Thank you very much. Visible thing that I can measure and tangible thing. And I can see leads coming in from those pages and I can track the source from those things. So there are ways to track things outside of visibility. But yeah, visibility on its own, we need to measure it, but maybe not just worship as much as people are doing. So the first thing you need to understand is visibility is not an outcome. The next one is, and I've talked about this, 50 prompts is not a market. You really need to understand how much variation can happen within a prompt. So if you've got five variable parts in a prompt, bearing in mind how these things are tokenized, the responses, you might have 100,000 variants from a prompt with maybe say 5 words in it. Add two more, and you're into 10 million. That's how much variation you can get from different prompts. And search prompts just don't naturally overlay into AI. People don't just go best university in the UK like they might do in Google. I mean, some people will, and the answer is we don't fully know. But what we do know is people you tend to use much longer, much more detailed prompts, much more personal prompts, which obviously means different outcomes and lots of different ways which you can surface. So people ask me, how many prompts is a good amount of prompts? Well, 50 is dipping your toe in the water, literally. And, I'd argue hundreds of thousands of prompts would be, a better data set. But even then, we don't know what people are searching. We don't have the universe of data. So it's an interesting time. The point I mentioned a second ago, search terms are not prompts. This kind of paints the picture. Best university for psychology might be a search term that some of your organizations rank for. You'll get little blue lines of organic traffic. You'll get little snippets and other sort of things, and you'll get clicks eventually. But a prompt, and this would probably be a short prompt for me, especially if you're a smart international student. I'm an international student interested in psychology, mental health research, employability, and student support. Which UK university should I consider? Instantly, you can see it's a much longer, detailed prompt with nuance to create fan out within the LLM or whatever they're using. It's going to come back with a completely different answer. And to add greater complexity to it, who's to say that international students are going to be searching in English? Um, not sure. Don't have the data on it. But what we do know is that people in different markets get different results. The things that are cited in the results are different for that market. And if you use a different language, definitely you get different citations and it synthesizes from different sources. So can be quite an interesting challenge for you guys to look at. Um, so yeah, there's three journeys and three evidence bases for you guys to look at. You need to that be if you're going to be doing this, you either need to think, well, let's do a test of one of these areas. Do we just focus on student recruitment, or arguably you might want to focus on research. You might say research is what we need to be doing. Um, we want to make sure we're visible for these things. We want to make sure that we're visible and saying the right things to the right stakeholders. I would argue, if you're going to start, pick one. Don't try and do them all. especially if you've only got the light touch visibility tracking piece. Um, if you've got really deep pockets, you want to track them all, be my guest. It'll be a fantastic piece of work. I'm not going to go into the individual sort of areas that we could look at here. You kind of know, you know your game, but I'd probably pick one if you're a starter. If you're looking to do them all, just treat them as separate reporting pieces. Um, so yeah, use case one, I think student recruitment is the obvious case. Um, and we can see what might get synthesized. That this is a really important thing to talk about. We know that earned media is driving a lot of the content, but also your own content to your own website is really important. So any information around rankings, the entry requirements, course pages, employability data, all this stuff that I've cited here will be on your website. You've also got to try and create the upstream environment before the LM to make sure that you're creating the right kind of content. And that needs measuring. We'll come on to that in a minute. So yeah, so that's what the AMI synthesized. The next few questions is how do you actually measure it? And in this example of a research organization, if you focus on research reputation, you can start to see the evidence will be segmented in different ways in terms of expert visibility, um, different kinds of PDFs or content that might be buried away. You might need to look at unpacking some of that data into more crawlable things, and it becomes maybe a more of an SEO job to make sure that the content sits well on the website. And then, yeah, use case three, I'm sort of flying through these now because I think I've made the point earlier, but yeah, commercialization, you've got a broader range of stakeholders there. So again, you start to think about those stakeholders and how you would measure what they're searching for. You need to make sure that the content that you're putting out there into earned media and into shared media, social media, and into your own website is touching on those factors. So hopefully that's teed everything up. I feel like I'm shouting into the void a little bit here on Teams, but hopefully that kind of that teed it up nicely for you. Um, what we are looking to do now is talk to you about the principles themselves, and I'm starting to go through how we might measure GEO. So a lot of the conversation focus on downstream AI outputs, visibility. We've got two pieces of terminology that I'm hoping that you guys, as marketing professionals, are going to grab onto today and take back to the marketing department and think this is what we need to be doing. These are the GEO principles. So there's three things you need to triangulate. The downstream AI outputs are only one part of it, and it's hugely directional and it's visibility. And yes, you can measure nuance around it. But what you need to be doing, if you've not got this down yet as an organization, is measuring your upstream reputation in a really sensible way. And what do we mean by that? Well, at PR Agency One, we have our own set of tools called One of Our Brand, built around the brand watch environment, where we download the complete public universe of unstructured data about an organization. That means earned media content. That means social media content. It means Google reviews. It means absolutely anything you can find online, really, that shapes your reputation. And then we produce reports on that based on brand attributes. So it's not just a visibility score. It's not just um, sentiment analysis. It's a piece of measurement focused on your brand objectives, and then tracking the impacts of that as we go down the piece. That is a really important first step that you need to pull in. And that I don't know where that kind of research might sit within your organization. Maybe the press office do it, maybe the marketing team do it. I don't know who else would do it. You tell me, but somebody should be doing it. And that helps you piece together what's actually out there. It's what the LLMs will be training on. And importantly, often LLMs will dip into search. They will run a search if there's some sort of if the question's recent or it thinks it needs to check the latest league tables. So it will actually run its own search engine, go off and search, and it's what it can find online, which is often made up of the upstream reputation piece. So that is a super, super important piece of work that you need to do. The second piece is around search readiness um, and content. Let's call it SEO. Um, there is a strong correlation between organizations that have strong search visibility and their visibility in LLMs because you are a primary source of the information as an organization. I'll have another sip of water, it's very hot. So, I've launched a couple of universities over the years, and I found their marketing operations to be reasonably sophisticated, pretty, I'll say, very sophisticated. All of them usually employ some kind of SEO professional or agency to look at their organic visibility. It is a case of pulling in that content and trying to triangulate it against the objectives. So where an SEO person might be looking at kind of commercial keywords, it's more about that. It is about that and how well you rank on all the technical SEO piece, but also about what the website says. They can help you to understand if that website really is communicating the information it needs to communicate. Is it unlocking the PDFs, the documents, the experts? Um, so there's a really strong correlation between the two. Um, what's been really fun on this whole journey as I shared this process was just looking at how the bubbles have emerged of little factions in this space. And if you go onto Twitter, if you dare open up that app these days and you fight your way through the misinformation, you can usually see lots of SEOs arguing that SEO is the biggest driver of GEO. Um, it's an important contribution. Likewise, if you sit with any PR people talking about this, they'll say 80% of all the citations are earned media. Whether that's exactly right, I don't know, but I would weight them equally as equally important pieces of activity when it comes to geo. And the second thing to just bear in mind around this is there's lots of sort of new and novel advice going on about kind of listicles and metadata and schema and all this kind of SEO jargon. There are ways, unfortunately, to kind of spam the LLM outputs, and there's also things that just don't work. LLM's text, you might have heard of that, doesn't work. Schema, well, a good SEO will have got schema on your website anyway. FAQs, well, you probably get FAQs on your website anyway. And for the love of God, please don't abuse listicles. That's probably this is the area of misinformation and ethics that we need to get over. Um, One of the areas of advice that often seems to be thrown out there without much regard for for ethics or longevity of this is there are people out there spamming listicles on their website. They will write a listicle saying that they are the number one university in the UK. That's the example. I've seen it in other categories. I haven't seen it in the higher education organisation, but in the higher education sector. There are countless examples of listicles where guess what? The person who wrote the list is number one. Unfortunately it's being sucked up by the LMs, and it is working. I'm pretty sure. Uh, Computer scientists in California will be bringing out an update soon to kill this kind of manipulation off. Google did, if you're old enough to remember, kill off link spam, where people could buy links to improve the visibility of websites. And there were lots of websites penalized and de-indexed from Google. And it feels like some people, maybe in the marketing industry, are too young to remember those heady days, those fun days of lots of case studies of like Interflora being completely de-indexed from Google. So do be careful. Do check where you're getting your advice and who's telling you to do what. There are some things that might work today that might not work tomorrow at best. At worst, might get you a penalty. So went down a little rabbit hole there of spam, but they're the three areas you need to look at with the GEO principles, the triangulation of these three data points. But you will see, I'm sure you're screaming into your computer now, James, but there are seven principles. Yes, there are. There are seven principles. So obviously the first one is making sure that you've got objectives that you're going to measure against. Sounds stupid, stupidly obvious, I should say. But lots of people kind of skip that first stage. You need to understand what your objectives are. Are you focused on recruitment? Are you focused on research? What particular area of research? What particular area of student recruitment? Is it international? I don't know. You tell me. Set your objectives and then go from there because then you can measure your objectives. It needs to be smart. I don't need to teach you about smart objectives. I'm sure you're all smart people. Um, then there's obviously the three areas of triangulation that I just talked about. Um, the another area is make sure that you are focusing on visible things to measure too. They are super important. Observable outputs. Um, there are lots of things you can measure that are observable and aren't just through a piece of software. Um, and then there's a couple of points in there about trustworthiness of sources and yeah, the ethical point that I mentioned. So I'm not going to drill down too deeply into those principles. What we've not done with the principles is tell you exactly how to measure it. I'm not telling you, for example, exactly which uh, measurement tools to use for downstream visibility. I use Profound. There are other tools available. I'm not telling you exactly how to measure it. I'm not telling you how many prompts to track. These are guardrails that hopefully will stand the test of time in a space that's quick, that's moving really quickly. In the upstream reputation space, I'm not telling you to use a Brandwatch style unstructured data tool to track all these things. There are other ways of doing it. Um, there are other ways to track your upstream reputation and do what we're doing. And again, with search content and readiness, well, how to audit your website from an SEO perspective, that depends on your website, depends on you, depends on your budget. What I would say is, broadly speaking, if you've got a really good reputation upstream of your LLM and you've got a really good SEO friendly website, downstream, you should be doing okay. But in certain markets, that doesn't always carry over. And usually that's because of spammers spamming listicles and weird stuff. Like I said, I'm not seeing any evidence of that actually happening. So, whew, I think let's have a quick look at the clock. 12:56. I started at quarter past. So I must be I'm getting close to the end anyway. So don't get nervous, Michael. I'm nearly there. So triangulate before you claim impact. I think I mentioned that on the last slide. Upstream, what to measure? Well, earned media, social media, owned content, student reviews, ranking data, research citations, all that good stuff should be measured in one of those nice big unstructured data tools that I tend to use. Take a few days of training to get your head around, and I've got a person, luckily, who does their full-time job. Um, Quite complicated tools, but good pieces of data with some really great insights. So from a search point of view, make sure that the website's findable in terms of search visibility, crawlability, the structure's right, the freshness is good, that the language is good. Language is super important. I'm hoping you've all got international websites with multilingual websites translated into all the different markets that your international students are aiming for. Um, that would be an easy win. Um, and then yeah, make sure that you're citable, that the source is citing you as well. They've got good links pointing to your website from reputable places. There's a lot more to search content readiness than this one slide. Well, I don't have enough time to go through it all, but happily, if anybody wants to speak to me, do a talk just on this one slide alone. And then downstream, just in terms of the LM outputs, well, you can just measure visibility if you want. You can get a nice percentage score. And I know lots of marketing people who just want to give their CEO a nice big percentage score of visibility to keep their managing director quiet, so they can get on with their day job. That's not the right approach, guys. I know you know that, but there are plenty of people that do just want a quiet life. What we should be doing, of course, is looking at, yes, visibility, but looking at the accuracy of what's been said. Is it accurate? If not, why not? Then look at the upstream universe of data. The prominence that you're being given, are you prominent, are you not? Does it change? The framing, the citations, where are you getting the citations from? That's a really important intelligence. I was speaking to Cision the other day, just going through all the publications. They've got licensing agreements with LLMs, and looking at how LLMs are using sites like Reddit to crawl the internet for data that it can't get via because they don't have the licensing agreement. So citations are super, super important. Bear in mind that when you get citations for Reddit or for Wikipedia, 30% of that website is a link graph linking to other things. So it actually, is it, from an attribution point of view, is it Reddit or is it the link in Times Higher discussing your rankings? Bear that in mind. And then there's a reputational risk. Is something has something happened on campus somewhere, something that kept you awake at night that's surfacing? You can track all those things down the line. So getting towards the end of my presentation, ready for questions, and I think I've got questions here actually, which I'll come back to you later. Just doing some very, very quick research. If you have a look, the University of Edinburgh, St Andrews, and the University of Exeter have done some interesting work in the space. I'm not going to go through it all now, but there are some projects available for you to go and read and research. You probably are aware of them. Um, I think St Andrews has been tracking visibility in different with 3,000 questions, which is a pretty big prompt size still. Probably not big enough, but bigger than what most people are using. And then I think Exeter's done something around digital, a report called Digital Visibility 2030, which uh, is online and you can find it by Googling it. So yeah, look for some of the thought leaders in the space and do share your knowledge at events like this. Get together, have panels, and learn off each other because that's obviously the best way to learn. So, what does good university geo measurement look like? Summing up, upstream, search readiness, downstream, evidence about the institution. Can the evidence be found and understood? And what do the AI systems present? There are some example measures there in terms of media and citations and things for you to take away. I can probably give Michael a copy of this presentation for you to be distributed if you're not fast enough at taking notes or AI note taker running. In terms of the SEO side of things, you've got the different types of structured pages, domain authority, course data, that sort of stuff. Um, and then, yeah, the downstream piece, I just mentioned that on the previous slide. So that's at a glance what it might look like. In reality, you need to build that out, keep trying it, testing it, building upon it. And then just don't repeat the mistakes of old. Don't just go for a visibility score. Don't just go for a vanity metric of visibility. Don't just, if you've only got 50 prompts, test lots of different prompts. Don't think that's your complete universe of data. Don't be fooled by that. Bear that in mind. Look that up. Do some more research on it. Um, yeah, maybe you're only optimizing for student recruitment. Maybe that's your biggest concern. Maybe that's all you want to do. But do think about other areas of the business that you can support. Definitely don't chase those hacks. I don't want to see any listicles from you people. I will be monitoring this sector closely, and if I see any of you guys using listicles, I'll knock on your door. Uh, Sounds threatening, but I'll just be very polite. Um, and then just make sure that you've kind of got that kind of discipline around SEO, the PR, working for you across the piece. So avoid those mistakes. And yeah, I think if you've not done anything yet, start here. Map the audiences. You should know who your audiences are, but if you're only tracking students, try and open it up. Look at different things that different people are saying about you or looking for, the students, the funders, the partners. Um, audit the evidence estate, all the stuff you've got that you own on the website. Make sure that it's findable and open and transparent and updated and stuff. Because that's, it's not just there for us from search, it's there for LLMs. Make sure that you're fixing the higher risk stuff first. You don't necessarily want people to get the wrong information about your entry requirements, the fees, that sort of thing. That'll be very easy for LLMs to get wrong, I'd imagine. Um, Expert roles. We work with a number of universities on PRing their experts. Love a good expert who's media friendly, willing to talk to the media, and the media love experts. Most universities that I've spoken to have a good expert program, but maybe could force it a little bit more. I know you've got lots of challenges in terms of you want to make sure you spread your time across all the different departments within universities, but um, yeah, make sure that you're getting your experts out there, even the really technical ones that you don't necessarily understand. There's always a home for some sort of biometric expert or something like that in the trade media. So do try and get niche and make sure that you're supporting those courses that need support or those research areas that need support. Make sure you're transparent about what you're reporting on in terms of the tools, the prompts. Don't just lock your prompts away. Make sure that you kind of transparent when you're reporting on them, that people can see what you've tracked, so people can interrogate it, and connect visibility to outcomes. So try and figure out what's happening in terms of inquiries and partnerships and the like. So, Michael, how am I doing for time? Am I okay? Just give me a thumbs up or down or down. I can't hear you on mute.
Sorry, we've got about 12 minutes left, so if you want
Oh,
to wrap
I
up.
could. Time is like a human construct, and you never know where it's going. So
If we could fit in some questions, that would be
I'm
great.
gonna feel, I am literally at. I feel like I'm at the question stage. So here we are, 5 questions for the university to test. I think I've probably talked to you about these because I've talked around the slide. But if somebody's coming to you with a GEO offering, a marketing agency like mine, ask them some difficult questions. Ask them what they've been looking at in terms of audience. Ask them about prompts. Ask them how they know that these are the right prompts. Ask them if they're synthetic or not. Nothing wrong with synthetic prompts, by the way. They can be useful. Lots of things can be wrong and right about them. What sources shape the answers? What's changed upstream? Make sure you're always, always, always thinking what has changed upstream and what can I do about it. So I think I'm on the questions section. Here we go. Um, Over to you guys. I've got a question in the chat here from Serena Mitchell. Should we look at that one first, Michael?
Yeah, go ahead, Serena. Do you want to ask your
I want to
question?
ask it in real life. That'd be nice.
Yeah, can
Hi.
you see me? Hello. Yeah, that was really interesting. I mean, I'm still um kind of really getting to grips with GEO, and we have I work at the University of Sussex, and I'm at the business school, and we work with our uh digital web team. So I think they're probably more advanced on GEO than I am. But obviously, if I'm creating content. Then what do I need to consider in around? Because I know you can create hidden instructions where you've got agentic AI looking through content that you can embed hidden instructions or again, I'm still kind of learning this. But do you have any practical tips or insights
Well, I
around?
wouldn't be going around embedding hidden instructions or anything.
Okay.
That sounds a bit black hat to me.
Well,
Uh,
no, I mean, people like Professor Ethan Mollick, I'm
yeah.
sure you're aware of him. I mean, he talks about this. He does it on his sites. I mean, it is a technique. So, okay,
Yeah. I mean,
just your thoughts on
there are
it be
ways
helpful.
to kind of I mean, are we talking about prompt injection here or something else? I mean, I personally would rather than focusing in on something niche like that, I would focus on the fundamentals. It's all well and good having some cutting edge thought about how to force people to have ask a certain prompt or something like that. What you really need to be thinking about those fundamentals. There's 3 points to triangulate. What is being said upstream in terms of brand reputation? What does my SEO uh, overlay neatly with that? And if not, why not? And then track the outputs from it. That's kind of where most people are trying to run before they can walk with this, and then they just go to a visibility tracker. So I'd like to find out more about what the prompt injection piece was suggesting and how it would work in reality and how it wouldn't be dubious. Um, but yeah, I'm not saying
Okay,
that was a dubious thing.
okay, thanks.
It's interesting. I think one of the things I took from the talk, what I've just listened to now, but also our talk previously, James, was that with all of the the sort of whole new industry of tools that has emerged over the last couple of years, there is inevitably a huge amount of snake oil suddenly up for
Yeah.
grabs. But really, what I've taken away from that is that, you know, in this world where there's all a lot of apparently new stuff, actually what you want to be doing is going back to basics, and everything old is the new again that you really want to be focusing on, rather than these new toys that
Yeah.
promise probably more than they can deliver.
Yeah, there are, there are ways to have content on your site that only like the LLMs can read. But the advice, the advice from Google is to write for the humans. I think that's really good advice. Uh, Anything that's seen as manipulative in any way eventually will get penalized or discredited. So most people are their websites and their content isn't built out fully anyway. So why focus on some new innovative technique that might sound a little bit dubious? It is focusing on the fundamentals here. That's kind of what we need to do. And in a way, old school measurement of reputation has suddenly become more valuable than it's ever been before, but with a greater skew towards brand attributes and tracking the brand attributes of your organization compared to others. That might have I would not say it became unfashionable, but everybody was focused on the new shiny thing. Actually, that a complete universe of unstructured data about your brand that's available online is a huge source of insight for you to understand what's how you're known and how the LMs are going to pick up any. I've got a question from
Susanna,
Susanna. Glad you prompted me on that name because I was struggling. Thanks, James. Very thought-provoking presentation. A couple of questions from me. Where's the best to keep up to date with about algorithm ways LLM crawls, information considered? So, in the digital marketing space, let's call it that, there isn't really a publisher that's writing cutting edge expertise. I probably would go with um, following people like Andrew Bruce Smith. He's a really interesting guy. I would keep in touch with Amec, our organization. We're going to be doing a lot more on the space. And then if you dare to fire up Twitter, there are lots of SEO influencers like Lily May who write really intelligently about the subjects. Um, and also, Google. I mean, I'm always a big believer in not necessarily listening to everything that Google says. You have to read between the lines, but Google puts out interesting information about this to its webmasters on some of its websites I don't know the name of at the moment, but I could find for you. So yeah, I tend to go to those kind of sources. Yes, I've written for PR Week and Provoke and PR Moment on it, and there are some interesting insights there. You should read those too. But I'd say the internet is your friend if you can find the right experts to follow.
search engine land, does that still have?
Search engine land is yes, it's definitely a good place to follow. Maybe a bit musky towards SEO, but definitely I'd read that. And I follow gosh, I've forgotten the name of the editor now. He's more interesting on Twitter than his articles actually. But like you say, you've got to close your eyes to all the horrible stuff on there. Um, Lucy,
Lucia, a question from Lucia. Do you want to read out your question, Lucia?
Um, Hi, I'm sorry it's taking me too long to do stuff today for some reason. Yeah, so it was a great talk. Thank you very much. I just wanted to know if you would recommend any tools, any organizations that offer tools for tracking and monitoring. Is there anything out there at the moment for Geo that's actually worth using?
so I could plug for my other business, Sensor Insight. We've got our own one of our tools. That'd be remiss of me not to say that. But yeah, so there are actual vendors that you can go to, like there's Profound, which is a well-known, popular tool for visibility. SEM Rush has an enterprise package. Their entry level one is rubbish though, so avoid that. Peak AI is another that does the similar sort of job. And I mean, they're the big three for me. But I would just, think about the triangulation piece. You need to make sure that you've got that brand tracking audit done. So we build our data. We use tools like Brandwatch to pull in a lot of the big data that we need, the unstructured data, and then build reports off that. One of our brand is built off that. So that is not only about 25 grand a year for one license, but it also there's a 3-day training course minimum to get up to speed with it. And believe me, I did the training course along with Steve, my head of measurement, and I played with it for a bit. And I said, Steve, no, you're doing this. It is super technical to get your head around. But that's a really good tool. From an SEO perspective, I'd go with a custom report really, rather than a tool. So I would be pulling in data from Google Search Console, really useful. Google Search Console is free, by the way. So I probably should talk to you about that. So Google Search Console, which you've all got access to, I'd probably imagine, because you're good marketers, but it's a free tool. It tells you all about your organic visibility. And last week I got access to the AI visibility piece. So it tells me how many impressions our websites are getting. Um, I'm assuming from Google Gemini. The Bing, because lots of people forget about Bing. Bing's got a Webmaster Tools tool. Again, it's free. It's got a lot more nuance and data in it, but it's probably just Copilot data. But still, really interesting stuff. So we're starting to see the tool providers giving us a bit more data. And I was saying, the reason in SEO, you've got the Google AdWord Planner as a great source of free keyword data, which is really precise and which is a universe of data. And there is no universe of data for prompts. And I've been waiting for the advertising side of LLMs to catch up, where they may or may not give us a better data pool from which to pull. And again, I'd imagine that would be free. So there's a few tools there for you to be looking at. But if you don't want to pay all those license fees, there are great agencies out there that can help you do that kind of measurement.
Thank you. Just maybe the last question is to go back to Susanna. Her second question. Susanna, do you want to talk about that?
Yes, hello. Thanks for your answer for my first question. So the second would be, and this may be a very naive question, so sorry about that. So would directly asking AI engines to analyze reputation would yield reliable results, or is not how it works?
So in a way, it's arguably as reliable as running a load of 50 prompts, because that's unreliable in its own way. But it will give you some insight, and I do it to give me a sense of I use it for kind of it's almost like social listening. I said it before, but the trouble with just asking it yourself is, well, are you asking the right question? You saw at the top of the presentation, if you search for the Amec of the Gandalf of Amec and the sheriff of the GEO posse, I come up first. But who's asking that question? Why would you definitely ask the right question about your organization? And there's huge variations with the prompts if you go from 5 to 7 words. So yes, it's useful. Do it, and I do recommend everybody does it. But your LLM of choice will also be set up with your own personal preferences in it. You'll have said, I'm Susanna from whichever university you're from, and I like people to write this way. Usually people don't work in a clean LLM environment, so it's already personalized. There's lots of things that can influence what comes back because it knows you. It's got all the history about all the questions you've asked. So yeah, I mean it's not naive. It's useful, but it's if you can ask it in a clean LLM environment without any history, maybe you're going to get a better bit of intel.
Thank you very much, James. Thank you very much to everyone here. Thank you for your questions. Very interesting to hear about this sort of, I think, frequently misunderstood and probably under-discussed topic. So thanks for joining us and for sharing this. And I hope that everyone here's got a bunch of ideas to go away with and try. And that's us breaking for lunch. So we'll be back at 2 for the next session, just after 2. James, thanks very much for coming, and speak to you all soon.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.